A huge day for the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday. A couple moves have actually been made, including the big news of the day. The Toronto Blue Jays make a trade.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube or if you're listening anywhere else, make sure you head over to the YouTube page. You drop a subscription. It's free. You don't got to pay for it. You might as well do it. And we've made YouTube sort of the hub where you get live streams, videos, shorts, podcasts, everything in between. So you might as well head over there, drop a subscription. It helps us out, keeps us at the top of your page. You guys know what everything's going on. A lot to get into today. Of course, we all heard about the Yimi Garcia news. The Blue Jays bring him back. We'll get into that more tomorrow as we want to do a deep dive into what Yimi's done for the team, what he can do for the team, the bullpen as a whole. But today, we have to start with the trade. Actually, that's going to be the episode. We're going to talk about this trade. We did about an hour and 40-minute live stream yesterday, thanks to Carter First, hopping on quick as I was at work, joined from the car, got back home, hopped back on the live stream. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. A lot of you guys in there. Hopefully, a lot of you guys enjoyed that. And today we're going to break down a little bit more. We're going to sometimes sort of go over some of the same stuff, but we've put our thoughts together. We've put our heads together. We've thought about this. We've sort of got our feelings together, I guess, looking at this trade sort of with a clear mindset and not in the, the rush to talk about it because we were excited that, something's actually happened. So, Carter, kick us off. What's going on in Blue Jays land?
Yeah, before we even just get into the Andres Gimenez trade, let's just talk about the day we had on Tuesday. Absolutely wild stuff going on. So we were obviously wanting the transaction. I was hoping for it. You were hoping for it. All the Toronto Blue Jays fans were hoping for it. Saw Juan Soto go off the books. We saw him go off the market. We're like, hey, we need somebody. We need somebody now. So they start off the day. They sign Yimi Garcia, obviously 2-year, $15 million deal. We're not going to focus too much on that today. Even though it's the first signing of the offseason, you'd think, oh, the signing happened yesterday. Why wouldn't you want to cover that on today's episode? Because there's two other things that happened. First off, with, I guess, that was going to be the news of the day, that we thought it'd be the news of the day, it was the draft lottery today. The Toronto Blue Jays had the 5th best odds going into the draft, come out with the 8th overall pick. We'll kind of leave that there as well. After we get Yimi Garcia initially, then we get that. We're like, okay, that's a pretty good day from the offseason, like especially for the MLB. Like December is usually the month that we have some more action. We have some more trades, transactions, things like that. And we get everything on one day. Literally like 2 minutes after I find out that the Jays got the 8th pick in the draft, we get a random trade out of nowhere. Kind of felt the exact same as the Daulton Varsho trade. That happened a few years ago. Just didn't really expect a whole lot. Expected there to be some sort of move this season. I think a little bit more so than when Daulton Varsho got traded back in 2022. But you get these reports. You get this feeling that there's going to be a trade cooking up, and you think there's going to be specific people involved. And Ross Atkins surprises you once again, and you pretty much get Daulton Varsho of the infield. So what the trade ended up being is you get Andres Gimenez from the Cleveland Guardians. You also get Nick Sandlin in exchange for my boy, one of my favorite players on the team, a lot of people's favorite player. A lot of people love this player as he progressed immensely through 2024. That was Spencer Horwitz. Spencer Horwitz is being sent to the Cleveland Guardians as well as Nick Mitchell. For me, Nick Mitchell doesn't really matter. You're more so focused on Spencer Horwitz in this trade. First thoughts. Obviously, I was live for a long time. Had a little bit of time now to at least make some of those thoughts a little bit more concrete, just figure out how I felt about this trade. It's the Ross Atkins specialty. It's the Ross Atkins masterclass. You get literally Daulton Varsho of the outfield. Now you have him in the infield, and I'll leave it at this. If you didn't think the Toronto Blue Jays were going to run it back for a third straight time and get that Team Gold Glove award, I think it might as well be a lock for the 2025 season. Now you have Daulton Varsho, now you have George Springer, now you have Andres Gimenez, you have Jose Berrios, who has won Gold Gloves as a pitcher. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has won a Gold Glove at first base. You have all the defense in the world again. But my understanding here, and where I still lead after this trade, is that You still have glaring needs on this team. Does this address some of those needs? Yes, it helps your infield defense. Yes, it does make your team's floor better. But is this the direction that a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans were hoping that the Jays would go? I think it's a better team, but an interesting trade to say the least.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm caught in between here. I'm being pulled in two directions because I understand that this does make the team better. The tough part is it's not getting better in the way I want it to, or I think it should. On the live stream, I thought it was all right. I thought I was happy with it and decent, but maybe that was coming off of the fact that I'm just excited that a move happened more so than really being excited about the trade. Again, there's different ways to look at this. Andre Jimenez, not the best batter for sure. He's not horrible, but he's not great. You're giving up Spencer Horwitz. We have made it clear that we liked Spencer Horwitz. We thought he could be a DH on this team. If the Blue Jays didn't think that he can continue to be good and continue to improve, then okay. Then fair enough. But if we now go out and see Spencer Horwitz become a great hitter in the next few years, I think we're going to be looking back on this deal and wondering what could have been once again, sort of bringing back to the Teoscar Hernandez trade, which saw us lose a very good hitter for something that probably wasn't needed in the long run. So I'm a little bit torn. I think that this could be good if his bat heats up and he continues to play great defense. I think that's great for this team. They've addressed a need. There still has to be an outfield signing. We've talked about that. There still has to be that. There still needs to be a little bit of bullpen help, which we will get into more so tomorrow. I'm right in the middle here, Carter. I don't know what to believe quite yet.
And it's interesting because you get a younger player in Andres Gimenez. He's younger than Spencer Horwitz, believe that or not, and has had 3 full seasons in the MLB. So you get that service time, you get a little bit more certainty rather than with Spencer Horwitz. Spencer Horwitz has about 120 games played. Andres Gimenez had more than that this past season. So in that sense, you're getting a guy, I guess, with a little bit more certainty. One of the best defenders in all of baseball, but we've heard that song and dance before. A guy that is fairly quick, a very good defender, elite defender, doesn't strike out a ton, doesn't have very good hard hit percentages, doesn't have very good swing speeds. Sort of this Ernie Clement approach, this IKF approach, this, again, these guys that we have seen come to the Toronto Blue Jays time and time again. And initially, when you just compare these two guys, when you look at 2022 for Andres Gimenez, you see a lot of good stats there. I think it was like 141 OPS plus. You got like a 297 average. You saw a lot of good things in that 2022 year. But then you look at 2023, you look at 2024, the last 2 most recent seasons, you have a guy that is on above or below average hitter for your Toronto Blue Jays. And we saw a lot of a below average hitting last season in 2024, especially at the start of the season. You got a little bit younger. You got some of these prospects in the system. Things looked a little bit better throughout the season. So one major thing about this trade is that you do have some team control in Spencer Horwitz. You have a ton of team control in Andres Gimenez. But I didn't tell you about the contract talks. And at the time, I didn't know this during the live stream, what the contract was going to look like. We had a few comments that said the Cleveland Guardians are looking to move on from Jimenez just to kind of clear some cap space. So that they have team control through 2030, and that's assuming that he picks up this, this option, but it's at least until 2029 that they have Andres Gimenez through team control. In 2025, the contract is 10. I'm just going to say again, roughly, it's 10.5 million in 2025. Go to 2026. How much money is he being allocated there? 15.5 million. So that is, again, a big contract you're going to have to pay out. When we're looking at similar guys, you could have got probably Ha-Seong Kim for around a similar price tag. You could have got Gleyber Torres for, again, assuming a similar price tag. But you're waiting for 2026. You're going to play Andres Gimenez at $15.5 million. You get to 2027. This is the same through 2027, 2028, 2029. $23.5 million throughout these 3 seasons. That, again, for a guy that has shown the last 2 seasons been a below average hitter, I don't care how good his defense is, that is a massive amount of money to pay for a guy that is a below average hitter. I don't care if he does make that move to shortstop. I don't care if he is the best defender in all of baseball. When you're paying a guy $23.5 million, you're going to need him to produce offensively, especially when you have a team construction like the Toronto Blue Jays do. It won't necessarily be a problem for this season. In 2026, we'll start to creep up and be a little bit of a problem. But again, you can get away with the $15.5 million. Once you get to 2027, unless Gimenez takes these massive steps, again, goes down and maybe returns to that 2022 season, then we have a huge steal here. We have a fleecing. Ross Atkins can definitely get his accolades there. But as it looks right now, you're taking on a lot of risk. You're taking on a massive contract for a guy that showed a lot of promise and is not necessarily going to solve the Blue Jays' troubles for this 2025 season.
This is my problem, okay? I'm going to lay it all out here. This is my issue with this trade. You have Spencer Horwitz, who is probably going to play DH, maybe slot in at first base, maybe take a couple games at second, but is your DH option. You then could have gone out and signed Ha-Seong Kim or Gleyber Torres to add to the batting and put them at 2. They could have rotated in for DH. They could have done all of that. Then you would probably, and like they still have to do, is sign a left fielder. That player then could rotate in for DH, but you needed a fielder. You needed a second or third baseman, 2 there, and you needed a DH. Those are 3 spots. With this trade, you now lose your DH, and you have a below average hitting second baseman. And you have not signed a fielder. In my head, it doesn't make sense. I understand the defensive part of the game. You needed somebody to lock up second base. I understand that. It was a rough spot last year. Not a ton of great defenders at 2. But I feel like if that was the case, there was in-house options. Not that I hate this, because I think he is still young and he can show maybe more. He can take steps forward. He can grow as a player. It all comes down to the fact, Carter, for me, is they didn't believe in Spencer Horwitz. That is the only thing in this whole trade that makes sense to me. That they just did not have faith in Spencer Horwitz for the next few seasons. Do you sort of agree with that?
I don't know if it's they don't love Spencer Horwitz as much as they probably love Andres Gimenez, because you see how much they love Daulton Varsho back in the day. I feel like you have a similar stance on this point as well. And like just going over, we'll go over Spencer Horwitz's season here in 2024. 97 games, he had 87 hits, 12 home runs, 40 RBIs. Again, he's walking a ton. You have 42 walks in there as well, 70 strikeouts, 265 average for a slugging of 433 and OPS of 790. Then we look at Andres Gimenez. We look at let's go to his best season. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt here. We'll go to 2022 and go over some of his stats from that season. So he had 146 hits in 146 games. Hit a game. Obviously, that's going to be pretty good for your baseball team. 17 home runs. That's his best season, 17 home runs. You look at a power projection and from a power perspective for the Toronto Blue Jays, that's not going to be your middle of the order power bat. And again, it's no secret. Obviously, that wasn't why he was brought in. He wasn't been brought in to be a power bat, but still, that's a massive need, not really been addressed. The 69 RBIs, obviously, that is really good. 34 walks during that season. For a leadoff hitter, this could be a guy with how quick he is. Again, you have that 297 average. That's more of your prototypical leadoff hitter. But you want a guy that's probably going to walk a little bit more than Andres Gimenez is walking. So in that sense, for the on base, you're going to miss a little bit of a step there necessarily. For the strikeouts, doesn't strike out a ton, like 112 strikeouts. That's not crazy. Had 20 stolen bases in 2022, 30, and then 30 again the last 2 seasons. So in that sense, you get some speed on the base paths. And again, it's going to be a better scenario than George Springer. Again, I think this guy now, out of when you see all things considered, he's probably your leading guy to be your leadoff hitter in 2025. So that means you're going to have Andres Gimenez at 1. You're probably up Bichette at 2, Vladdy at 3, at 4. Like as it stands right now, you got to assume they're going to sign a power bat. But if they don't get a power bat on this team, who is your 4-hitter? Like actually who?
Kirk, Varsho, that's the issue right now is we're still left with not a whole lot of answers. This doesn't change much for me here. And that, you know what? I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. So I'm going to take a quick break. We'll hit the ad. We'll come back. And then you guys can prepare yourself for a little bit of a rant from me. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5. Get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. I'm telling you, it is the best place to do that. It's so easy. You can do the live. You can just pop in, see who's doing well, see who isn't, place your bets all of that. It makes it super simple and fun and easy to use. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, Carter, back to my rant here, okay? I'm frustrated because I don't know what this lineup looks like. And yes, maybe this solves one of our big issues of not having George Springer in that leadoff position. That was a big problem for me and you last season. Now it comes down to the fact that who hits 4? Is it Daulton Varsho? Is it Alejandro Kirk? Is it goodness, I hope I don't have to say it, George Springer? And again, I'm not too upset because there's time here. There's time for this team to do something still in free agency and make that big signing in left field, which we would assume would be that power bat. So I'm not too pessimistic yet, but I still don't understand how this solves your team's problems. Spencer Horwitz could have slotted in at that possibly a 4 if he had a good season. He has that potential. But now he's gone. Your DH is gone. So now you're looking for now 2 positions to give you power bats, your DH and your left fielder. And so that means I would assume that this team still has to bring in 2 pieces because I don't know who else slots in where. Like, are we going to be seeing Davis Schneider be your DH? Are we going to be seeing Will Wagner being your DH? Are we going to see Orelvis Martinez being your DH? Maybe. But do you want to hitch your wagon to that? I don't think so. I don't think that proves to anybody that this team is playoff bound. And that's a little bit my issue.
It just it switches the need of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now you don't necessarily need a second baseman, but unless you're playing Gimenez at third base, and then you go again, maybe Will Wagner's your second baseman, maybe Orelvis Martinez is your second baseman for the season. At that point, if it's one of those two or they're rotating, I'm not going to fault them too much for that. So I guess, I don't know, whether it's your second or third baseman doesn't really matter. Like we said, you're going to need a DH. Absolutely. You don't have anyone that you could say, oh, he's just going to hit and that's going to be fine. If that's his major production to the team, is just his hitting. There's nobody on the team right now that can slot in there. That is just not good at defense and that can hit. We don't really have anyone that can hit, honestly, on the team. There's maybe 3-4 players. I think 4 might even be a little bit of an overstatement that I'm confident in that can be above league average hitters going into next season. So this kind of comes back to the same idea we had with Ha-Seong Kim, is that Andres Gimenez probably is the best player involved in this trade. I'll say it. As much as I love Spencer Horwitz, he's probably the best player in the trade. So that is always a good thing if you're getting the best player in the trade that you can take as a W for your team. But if we're looking at overall success for 2025, your hitting got worse. I'm going to say it. For 2025, I think the hitting got worse. Your defense got better. Again, you have more options on the base paths. Maybe you have better. You obviously have better defense. You maybe have more options of where you can put some guys, more flexibility within the lineup. But strictly just from a hitting standpoint, I think Spencer Horwitz was going to have a better season than Gimenez for this 2025 season. So when we talk about needs, again, this all could be solved if we look at it and they get, I'll just say Santander and then whoever it is at DH, somebody that can hit 20, 25 home runs. I'm going to be fine at that point. That's how the offseason transpires. In a nutshell, when you're looking at this in a vacuum, pretty good deal. It depends what Ross Atkins is going to do with the rest of this free agency. Because just, again, looking at the trade, Nick Mitchell, he's 21 years old in single A, played 90 games, hit 289 and 4 home runs. Again, like, he's in single A. It's a prospect. Can I really be so upset that they moved on from Nick Mitchell? No, I barely even knew who Nick Mitchell was, honestly, before this trade even came through fruition. Then you get Sandlin from the Cleveland Guardians. You need bullpen help. Is he going to be the end-all, be-all? Is he going to be a game changer in your bullpen? Probably not, but it can bolster the bullpen for 2025. So you're looking at the trade itself, I think the Jays won this trade, actually, even though like the kind of demeanor on this podcast isn't necessarily reflecting that. And again, it comes back to the overwhelming needs that aren't being addressed. And we've seen in 2023, we've seen that offseason, the 2022 offseason going into 2023, is that when they need a power hitter, they don't go out and sign the power hitter, but they will go out and sign the defense. So for me, it's just feeling like this signing has set up the last 2 seasons. This is exactly how we felt at that time. And I am hoping to God that we do not have to go through it and run it back with this middle of the order once again in 2025. And I think that's why we're not as happy on this podcast as you might think we should be.
Yeah, and I think you're right. If this team is in a different position right now than just having a catastrophic year, maybe you're more happy with this trade. Maybe you're like, okay, I can see the vision here. But right now, for us, this vision is looking back 2 years. We're like, oh, wow, this puts us in the same position. This doesn't improve the hitting, which was was absolutely neglected for the past 2 years. So this entire thing hinges on the fact that can the Blue Jays now bring in two strong bats, a left fielder and whoever they decide to grab as a DH. And Carter, I'm going to throw a little bit of a hypothetical at you. Say they get either Santander, Teoscar, Jurickson Profar, whoever in left field, okay? Pick one of them. I don't care. Then they go out and sign on a 2-year deal Paul Goldschmidt. Are you happy with that? Are you happy with this offseason?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Again, you want to be in on Juan Soto. Obviously, how realistic was that? Not very realistic. You can get a guy like Santander, and he can be, again, not necessarily 44 home runs, whether it's Teo or Jurickson Profar. For me, again, doesn't necessarily matter. It's just you need that type of guy in your lineup. You need that power bat. You need a guy that can drive in runs. You need a guy that can come up in clutch scenarios. I think, again, obviously they all have their own strong strengths and their own weaknesses. If you want to go, again, you get the switch hitter in Santander. Maybe you get a more true power hitter with a guy like Teoscar Hernandez from the right side. You kind of can see what he can do. But again, with Jurickson Profar, he's been very good at power hitting as well. He can hit home runs, and maybe he has the most upside, you could argue, out of all of these free agents. So again, there's definitely positives and negatives to all of these free agents, all of these corner outfielders. But again, if you get Paul Goldschmidt, you're kind of relying, like you could compare that to your Justin Turner. Is that going to be enough necessarily to change this team? But then your enough signing, that big impact signing, is your corner outfield. So at that point, not every single signing has to be this major offseason target whatsoever. You can have these more minuscule signings, the smaller term signings that can still completely change your team. So if it is a guy like Paul Goldschmidt, I think I like a more attractive name probably there, not like the 37-year-old Paul Goldschmidt, who, again, I still think can have a productive season. But say it is your Santander, Teo, whoever, Paul Goldschmidt, and then you got Gimenez, and this is kind of what you're running back, and you're okay with going Will Wagner or Orelvis Martinez. The team is a lot better than it was in 2024. Again, on top of that, you got to hope maybe they get one more bullpen arm. Maybe they get a starting arm as well. But if that's all they're going to do offensively and they're going to roll it with Will Wagner and Orelvis Martinez, I'm okay with rolling it out with those two rather than not doing anything. And then you got maybe your David Schneiders, your Joey Loperfidos, your Leo Jimenez's that aren't necessarily as higher upside prospects. At that point, I think I'm going to be a lot more like, oh no, how's this going to go? Rather than the higher upside guys with Will Wagner and Orelvis Martinez.
Totally. And I agree with your sentiment totally. I think if you can get Santander and one of those guys, at this point, whatever, get one of them. And then you bring in just another guy that can hit for power. And I threw Paul Goldschmidt in there. Pick a guy, whoever you want. Somebody like that that can hit home runs, that can hit for some power, that can be a solid DH in that aspect of the game. I think I'm very happy with how this offseason would go. But as of right now, we have not still seen the one thing every Blue Jays fan out there has asked for, and that's a power hitter who can hit for 30 home runs, 35 home runs. I mean, 40, great. If you want to give us 40, sure. But if you can hit for 30 plus home runs, Carter, that's the need now. This was a move. Was it the big move? I pray to God not. The Yimi Garcia thing. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll get into it. I'm pumped, but this can't be it. And this can't be it. And then it can't be, let's go get a starting pitcher and that be it. Because, oh my goodness, Carter, I might have an absolute conniption on this podcast.
Nice word there, actually. Conniption. I'd ask you to explain that one, but I'm not sure if you'd be able to do that. So we'll leave it at that.
I know it in context, not just, I could, if you want the dictionary definition, I'm not your guy. I can't do math and I can't spell. I just can talk a little bit. That's it.
Yeah, I guess like a long story short for this, I'll end it off with a Ross Atkins quote on Gimenez. He goes on to say, everything about him was attractive. The work we did on his bat and the offensive impact that there can be. The teammate, we've heard incredible things about the person and the level of speed and athleticism being here for a long time. Very similar to Daulton Varsho stuff to me. And that's why I said can be, because it is a big can be. It's a big question mark. It's not a concrete thing. We haven't seen an above average hitter in Gimenez the last 2 seasons. So can he come back and bounce back with the Jays? maybe that's definitely a possibility. But at the end of the day, if it ends up being a team where it's Gimenez is your one, you got your Bo, your Vladdy, and then it's Santander. And I don't know if you use Paul Goldschmidt, we'll use Paul Goldschmidt, whether it's Jock Peterson, whether it's like a Carlos Santana, whoever. You got a power bat in there at 5. And then you have, if it's Springer at 6, and then you got Kirk at 7 or vice versa. I think that's a team I can get behind a lot more than, maybe George Springer being the 4th hitter in this lineup. Definitely cannot run that back. I guess not even run it back, just have that happen. Because I thought running it back would be bad enough. Them being in the number 1 spot. I think it might be even worse if you get George Springer in your number 4 spot coming up to this season. But it's going to be what Ross Atkins continues to do. This can't be it. And this is kind of where we're at. It's going to be tough to evaluate this right now because Spencer Horwitz being so young. Andres Gimenez, younger than Spencer Horwitz, has more service time, but is younger in actual age. These guys still have a lot of time to kind of figure out their careers and mold into the MLB player that they are supposed to be in the major leagues. So, it's going to be interesting to see, when the team gold glove is announced again, that is the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025, if that actually does have any impact on the team's success in 2025.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We're going to come back. Just some other MLB news. Some of it came out while we were on the live stream. We're going to just sort of tell you guys, break down what has happened in the MLB over the last couple days, not couple days, I guess, day. So we'll get into all that right after this short break. All right, Carter, to kick some things off here, some MLB signings, news, whatever. Where do you want to start?
I guess we'll go back to the draft. So obviously the Blue Jays, 5th best odds. They get the 8th pick in that draft. And in the grand scheme of things, obviously it's disappointing, but it's so typical for the Toronto Blue Jays. But it could have been worse. It could have been the Colorado Rockies. Colorado Rockies having the best odds of landing the number 1 pick. They go to 4. So a very similar drop for the Rockies as well. Congratulations to the Washington Nationals for getting the 1st overall pick. Ethan Holiday most likely going to be going to the Washington Nationals. I think for baseball, that is one of the better payoffs there. And it's just funny that this was supposed to be like our bigger news going into this episode. We were going to talk about the draft lottery, the implications, things like that. And now here we are, kind of throwing it into the last segment just because of how things transpired. But it's in, I guess, totality, it's just who would have thought the Toronto Blue Jays would have had another thing, I guess you could say, go wrong or get unlucky with when it comes to the luck of the draft lottery when it comes to the MLB. Some people are saying the MLB hates Canada.
Well, I mean, there's one team. I think that's well established. A couple other things here, Carter, for me. I mean, yeah, draft lottery, that was crazy. We were going to talk that to death. And I mean, this is way bigger news. So let's get into it here. The Rockies sign Estrada to a 1-year, $3.25 million contract. The Blue Jays, of course, signed Yimi Garcia, 2-year, $15 million. We'll get more into that tomorrow. I'm just sort of looking through everything I have because there was a ton. The Rangers agreed to a 3-year, $75 million deal with Nathan Eovaldi. Then there was that. The Yankees agreed to an 8-year, $218 million deal with Max Fried. That is the big one. That one is a guy out of the Blue Jays contention. Obviously, there's still Corbin Burns, who is heavily rumored to be, taking a look at the Toronto Blue Jays at least. But a lot to go on here, Carter. A lot.
Yeah, now this has just kind of spiraled the Corbin Burns talks in Toronto Blue Jays land to an all-time high. The Red Sox, the Yankees being in on Max Fried. You don't get Juan Soto. Pretty good place to start is Max Fried for the New York Yankees. Obviously locking him up 8 years. Pretty wild. It's going to be 31 in his first season. So that he's going to go through his age 38 season and will be 39 with the team, which will be, again, if it gets to that point, that's not really why you're signing Max Fried. But at that point, probably in store for some regression. Overall, Corbin Burns probably going to be a similar contract. Again, hopefully it's not 8 years necessarily, but again, you see precedent. We see how these contracts are being paid out. Corbin Burns probably going to want a little bit more than Max Fried. So be on the eye out for that, whether it's the Red Sox, whether it's the Blue Jays, whether it's the Astros. I mean, the Phillies are in on some of these guys as well. Obviously, they got Jordan Romano, so maybe the Phillies will go and try to scalp some more guys the Toronto Blue Jays are in on. But yeah, just a crazy day of things going on, especially in Toronto Blue Jays land, but the MLB as a whole. As we said, thought the domino effect would start when Juan Soto was signed. I did not think that it would go this crazy, this quickly, especially in Toronto Blue Jays land with all the information that we seem to get in the span of under 24 hours.
This is classic Blue Jays. It's one thing happens, dominoes knock over, and here's 9 things that happen. And it's nothing that you would expect. Like, did you expect Yimi Garcia to be back with the Toronto Blue Jays? Well, maybe I don't want to burn that question for today. We'll get into that tomorrow. But even this trade, sort of out of left field, I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't ready for it. But we've done so much conversation over trades and who are the Jays going to sign in free agency. We've broken all of this down, and now it's like not one thing that we said could happen has happened yet, and they're pulling things out of left field, except the left fielder, which is crazy.
Yeah, the only thing we can't get out of left field is really just the guy to stay there. And nobody wants to stay in left field. They'll come from there, but they won't stay, unfortunately. And just with all the, like, even just like in the personal lives happening, like it's exam week for me. Like I was actually, when this was coming out, I was shoveling snow. So I made a snow wall in Braden's parking spot. And then obviously I see the Andres Gimenez news. I said, sorry, Braden, there's more important people than you, unfortunately. It's the rest of the Locked On Blue Jays people. The people that are going to be tuning into the live that did tune in. We appreciate whoever did have time to do that. And then obviously watching this podcast, giving us their thoughts and opinions on this hectic day in Toronto Blue Jays land. And just hopefully Ross isn't done. Again, it's nice to see these moves. It's nice to see a transaction, especially missing out on the Juan Soto sweepstakes. If anything, I thought if we're going to bring somebody back, it'd be Jordan Romano rather than Yimi Garcia. But hey, any bullpen arm is a bullpen arm that's going to help this Toronto Blue Jays team in 2025. We'll get more into that, assuming on our next episode, unless something crazy happens again in Toronto Blue Jays land. I guess you got to always be have your eye open for that and be on just ready to see some transactions flourish in the MLB after one of the, again, biggest free agents go in Juan Soto. Just that domino effect that we kind of anticipated, just not expected to come out like a landslide on us or on our Toronto Blue Jays fans. But Braden, you got anything else to kind of just sum up this episode before we do take off for the day?
Not really. It was a crazy day. I mean, I was on that live stream in traffic today. The snow was coming down like crazy. I get home and I have to drive over almost a giant snowdrift because Carter just sort of, he had to do what he had to do. He had to get the news and information out to you guys, which I appreciate. And I hope you guys all do as well. All of you that were in the live stream yesterday, we really appreciate it. Everything that you guys do. I mean, we had a donation from Justin Powers yesterday. Shout out, Jab. Thank you so much, sir. Hopefully you guys can tune in to every live stream we do. It makes it way more fun when we get the conversations flowing. So keep your eye out for that live stream. You can hit that bell notification on YouTube so that you get notified immediately when we go live. As well, hit the subscribe button, as I always say. And we'll talk to you tomorrow with, who knows, maybe some more news at this point.